you can and you're running with kings. But how far could you go if you run with the wind? And the chances you take are what give you wings, and you can fly.
Welcome to Consider Civility. Today we're speaking with Kent Roberts, co-founder of the Civility Center, and continuing our series on civility in the community. And in this session, we're going to ask Kent to talk to us a little bit about this concept of social capital. So this is a term that I believe I was introduced to when I first became aware of Kent and the Civility Center, but then read a little bit more about it in a book called Bowling Alone by Robert Putnam. And in that book, Putnam suggested that social capital and trust among citizens has declined significantly. COVID aside, I'm wondering, Kent, what do you think about this idea of social capital? Do you see bowling alleys, community events, block parties, things like Neighbourhood Watch and Welcome Wagon, this sense of community and active participation as a member of a community, COVID aside, do you see that coming back into fashion anytime soon?
In some places, but I in Putnam's work, I think it's really important that we understand that social capital is as important, if not more important, than economic capital. And I know that some people like to get in discussions about social capital as well as just plain individual human capital. But you need to have resources and able to grow and prosper and thrive in today's world. And some people may think that, for example, someone on the streets of one of our large urban centers with all the problems and the death surrounding them and the poverty and everything else that they may see on the streets, that those people are by far in horrible shape compared to somebody who lives out in a cabin in the mountains somewhere out west. And I'm here to say, if I had a problem, I'd much rather be in an urban center where there were at least solutions around than be isolated and alone, just getting cabin fever. So I think that we need to acknowledge the strength of social capital. And yet we have so much social networking going on all around us. But sometimes it's almost like water everywhere, but not a drop to drink. We really have to take a look at our own individual communities and our own individual lives and take a look at the value of social capital. And one of the things that Putnam had said was that back in the day in the 50s, when I'm not saying these were simple times, but community life was a little bit different. We weren't as, we didn't have the interstates to drive and connect overnight. We didn't have so much television and all these other different medias, the internet or what have you. But people generally were joiners. They belonged to their church groups, and they might join to a bridge group or canasta or a bowling team or something else, that a women's club here, a men's club there, whatever. But the idea is that we weren't bowling alone. And the whole idea would be like, let's just say a church bridge group. And let's say that these 32 women got together for these tables of bridge every Wednesday, and they were playing. And someone says at a table, you know, my daughter is a teenager and she came home and she informed me that this is the way things were going to be. And she said, and I was taken back, and all of a sudden, the room may almost stop, but it kind of, one person at another table would say, well, that happened to me, and this is what I did, and whatever, and so on. And before long, there's a conversation going on about teenage girls and their moms. And there's a lot to be learned from that conversation. And the same thing may happen at the bowling alley that night, where a man may say, oh, I'm struggling with this, and his bowling having a beer afterwards, and they're saying, well, this is what we did, and this is what I did, and this is how I overcame that. Well, today people are playing bridge or bowling alone. They've got really no place to go, and they think that everyone else has the answers but them. So it's important that we understand the value of that social capital. So even though we don't maybe have as many bridge clubs or have as many people belong, though bowling alleys still are there and there are bridge clubs still here or there, but not only that, I wanted to add one more thing about the bridge club. Well, most of those women on the average belong to 3 different groups. So as a problem's thrown out, they're not bringing just the knowledge of those 32 people who play bridge. All those other groups are multiplied into that. So you almost have a way of having just general common understanding of the different types of problems that you're aware of. So you have this diverse array of, this is how I solved it. This is how I solved it. This is what works. This is what didn't work for me. And so it's important to understand the value of social capital. What I want to say about today, given COVID is throwing a monkey wrench into everything, but in some ways it's got us back to basics too. So there are different things that may be happening in neighborhoods that people are neighboring now that didn't even neighbor because they're in clusters differently than what they had prior to COVID. We have to be much more intentional about creating social capital. We can do that in many different ways. We have to take a look at what is available within each community to leverage the different types of social capital that's out there. And you, whether it's play groups, where the women get together, and what women are saying in the other room while their kids are playing in the other room is just as important as the kids playing together. All the old idea of how can you build your own and build a network of social capital to help you in becoming, not being isolated and alone. Parenting and life often is your best guess, okay? It's nothing, I mean, there's not a book that you can go out to that's going to have the answer for all the problems that face every individual and every family in society. And so we have to figure this stuff out. And we do that through our social capital networks. And just though we don't have to agree with how people do everything, but it gives us a different idea and understand that we're not alone. I mean, working in parenting, for example, I found a lot of strength in letting a parent know that parenting is your best guess. There is no encyclopedia that will tell you exactly what to do. So I think it's important that we understand the strength and the lack of, and the importance of social capital and trying to build that. And sometimes we can do it intentional maybe through church, maybe through business. Business leaders need to understand the value of social capital. Maybe that's substituted some of the other things. Often neighborhood gatherings, a neighborhood pig roast, a neighborhood block party. Those are all things that you can do. Living on a lake and having a lake festival, something that you may do within your community. I could give you example after example of how building the social capital saved communities from extinction.
I can tell you, Kent, and I'm sure some of our listeners would agree that some of those examples would be really interesting. And so I'll put that on my list for continued discussion in the next session. And thank you so much for sharing your insights about social capital. I think that that could easily be a full day course. And so I've just made myself a note here too that maybe as things clear a little bit here with COVID, it would be amazing if we could get together a mastermind group and spend half a day or so in a group together discussing social capital and building social capital in the 21st century, like kind of as we're moving into this new kind of way of the world, this global kind of one world, one classroom scenario we're facing. So thank you again for your time today, Kent, and for your insights as
Lou, I
always.
wanted to add one more. I forgot.
Sure,
Can I?
of course.
I have a saying when it comes to social capital, it takes a child to raise a village. And people look at you, you mean it takes a village to raise a child? No, it takes a child to raise a village. And so often, children can be the catalyst for building community. Because people can forget their own agendas and their own, they love their children so much, they want what's best for them, and they actually care about children in general within the community. And so it's around children that often we build that capital that is so important. But once again, we miss leveraging opportunities every day to build the adult social capital around activities of our children. So I just wanted to make sure I made that one point. I had them in my notes and I went right over it. So thank you for letting me adding that.
No, that's excellent. And I think that that could be the title of your new book, Kent. It takes a child to raise a village. I love that idea. So thank you again, and thank you to our listeners, and we'll see you all next time on Consider Civility. Please share, like, and subscribe, and you can reach out to us, events at Civility Experts, and if you'd like to be put in direct contact with Kent Roberts, we're happy to do that for you too. Thanks so much. Bye for now.
Reason why each of us comes to this earth, and your actions will always speak louder than words, and you'll never know what you're capable of until you try.